Do you know what's coming up at the Madison Symphony Orchestra? Limited tickets remain for their special MSO at the Movies live performances of Star Wars: A New Hope on February 22nd and 23rd. It's the Overture Concert Organ's 20th season, and it continues with the return of operatic tenor Limmy Pulliam. And the final forte is happening on March 5th, a free and open to the public event. Check out the upcoming events at the Madison Symphony at madisonsymphony.org/calendar. Today on CityCast Madison. Welcome to the Friday News Roundup. We've had a huge week with local election news, a state budget address, Black excellence to uplift, and some places we could do better. Let's go. It's Friday, February 21st. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. All right, joining me today on this beautiful podcast is the leader of this here pod, Hayley Sperling. Howdy, Hayley.
Hello, this is a beautiful podcast.
And we've got our producer extraordinaire, Jade Iseri-Ramos. Hey.
So nice to see your faces.
It's so nice. We are in person together, so that's a really lovely opportunity and experience.
Yeah, you're in 3D.
Right? Yeah. Not on the screen.
And we need this, community togetherness. It's such a crazy time right now. And before we dive into the week's news, we do want to first start off by acknowledging that we know that the times we're living in are not normal. And we can't ignore that. That the bold and sweeping actions coming down from the new Trump administration are stirring uncertainty in our day-to-day lives and our communities. That's because many of the executive actions we're seeing are unprecedented in nature, and we don't yet know their full impacts or reach. That said, how are you doing? We want to know what's on your mind. Do you have questions about the future of life here in Madison? Questions about what sorts of resources will be available to you, your organization or workplace, your children or grandchildren's school in the near future? Questions about policies? If you do, we'd love to hear from you. Call in and leave us a voicemail at 608-318-3367. That's 608-318-3367. We want to empower you to be a part of our conversation. This is your city, so consider joining us. You can even stay anonymous if you'd like. Or if you don't want to leave a voicemail, which we want you to, email us at madison@citycast.fm. We'd love to hear from you. All right. On the topic of empowerment, what's a more empowered move than voting? Hayley, we had an election this week.
We did, and many voters, not that many voters, but some voters braved the sub-zero temps earlier this week to cast their ballot in the spring primary election. Very exciting. For many, it was a pretty short ballot. As a reminder, folks were voting to determine which candidates will advance to the April election in the race for state superintendent and several Madison City Council seats. Let's start with state superintendent. In the running was incumbent Jill Underly, Sauk Prairie School Superintendent Jeff Wright, and Milwaukee education consultant Brittany Kinzer. Ultimately, Underly and Kinzer won out. According to AP reporting, Underly won 38% of the vote, and Kinzer claimed 34.5% of the vote. Wright trailed the two women by garnering roughly 27.5% of the vote. And as a reminder, the state superintendent is a nonpartisan role that oversees Wisconsin's public education system, which includes thousands of schools, and leads the Department of Instruction. So, as I mentioned, though the race is technically nonpartisan, the two candidates who are progressing to the April election do have clear alignments. Underly, again, our incumbent, has backing from the state Democratic Party and the teachers union. She's received more than $100,000 from the party. Meanwhile, Kinzer has support from the state Republicans. She's received around $200,000 in funding from the party so far. So clearly some party alignments there, some differences. One key difference between the two candidates, though, is their stance on funding for the state's voucher programs. For context, this quote-unquote school choice program helps subsidize the cost of private schools for lower-income students via public funds. Kinzer has championed herself as a quote-unquote school choice candidate, but Underly says that the programs take desperately needed funds away from public schools, thereby forcing the districts to rely on property tax hikes to help balance their budgets. And we've seen this across the board in Dane County, in Madison itself. So, there's a lot to watch here. And I don't know about you guys, but at the start of this race, this wasn't really one that I was watching super closely, but given how hot the subject of education is these days, I have a feeling that we are going to be seeing a lot more campaign ads for this race before the election. What do you guys think?
Well, with the privatization of schools and the kind of push towards that, it's kind of echoing everything that's happening right now, taking funds from the public and saying, hey, us out here in the private sphere, we can do this better. And yeah, that's obviously a hotly debated thing. But yeah, $100,000, $200,000, money's in the...
There's some big money here. Yeah, there's some big money here for sure.
I also think it's interesting to see that 27% of the vote that Wright gathered, what's going to happen with that. I think those are votes that are up on the table. And when you look at Underly versus Kinzer was only behind by less than 4%. So the Wright votes, people who went out for Wright, their votes to be bought, I guess, maybe.
Yeah, well, they're kind of the toss-ups, right? And Kinzer has definitely already been making appeals to Wright supporters. But at the end of the day, I think that's going to be an uphill battle for her because Wright is definitely more, I would say, politically aligned with Underly. And his supporters, I would have to imagine, are probably going to throw their backing behind Underly. So we'll have to see how that goes. More to come on that. But circling back to the election, also on some people's ballots this week was a choice between city council candidates. As a quick refresher, there were primaries in districts 9, 10, and 12. And in all of the races, the incumbent candidates emerged as winners. In District 9, that's Alder Nikki Conklin. She was challenged by Rick Cruz, who is a school finance consultant with the state DPI, Department of Public Instruction, and Joanne Pritchett, who is the co-founder of the African American Health Network. Ultimately, Pritchett garnered the most votes out of the three, taking roughly 47%, and Conklin got roughly 41% of the vote. So yes, the incumbent will advance, but it looks like she's got her work cut out for her if she actually wants to keep her seat. Meanwhile, in District 10, current City Council President Yannette Figueroa Cole faced challenges from former City Council President Sherry Carter and longtime City Council Administrator Lisa Veldren. Again, incumbent Figueroa Cole emerged with the most votes. She got roughly 37% of the vote, and Veldren came in second with just under 34% of the vote. Carter put up a solid fight for sure. She got just under 29% of the vote. So it'll be interesting to see how those votes get distributed come April. And yeah, this is, again, just a real representation of how much every vote matters. Figueroa Cole and Veldren were separated by just 75 votes at the end of the day, so every voice counts here. And lastly, in District 12, the primary that really wasn't on the ballot was incumbent alder Amani Latimer Burris, and she was facing challenge from programmer analyst at UW's School of Medicine and Public Health, Julia Matthews, and Hussein Amak. But Amak actually suspended his campaign last month due to a family emergency, but he still appeared on the ballot. So like I said, the primary that wasn't. Ultimately, Latimer Burris earned just under 53% of the vote, and Matthews got 42%. So now we shift our attention to the April election, which will also feature our state Supreme Court candidates. So buckle up, y'all, because it's getting really real out here.
Yep, the ads have already started. We know the world is watching us in a way, definitely the nation.
There's also a constitutional amendment that's going to be on the ballot. Only 16% of registered voters went out in Dane County on Tuesday. So I'm really hoping that come the spring election, we see a much higher turnout and maybe warmer weather will help with that.
Yeah, turnout for this one was rough, but also it was like negative degrees outside.
So cold.
It was so cold.
I handed my ID to the person checking, and she was like, "This is a very cold ID."
Ice cold, baby.
Ice cold.
And yeah, we're going to be continuing coverage, obviously, up to the election. We're going to be trying to do interviews with all the big players. Also, Hayley, you're going to be putting out a survey, right? We want to hear from those of you who are trying to be on city council and like, what priorities do you care about?
Yes, we sent out a questionnaire to all the folks running for city council. And if you're listening, please fill it out, send it back to us. We'd love to hear from you. We would love to help inform your voters.
Yes, and we know our local elections matter, including for our governor and our state representatives. All these people decide where our tax dollars go. We are now busy in the state budget season in this capital city where we live. So we're going to head to some State House news in a minute. But before we do that, let's take a quick break.
What sort of promises have you made to yourself this year? Maybe get in better shape or eat healthier, save more money, travel somewhere new. What about discovering a new culture by learning a new language? With Babbel, you can do that in just a few weeks. I'm CityCast CEO David Plotz, and I'm having such a good time learning Spanish on Babbel this year. I'm taking a trip to Mexico City in the spring, and Babbel is giving me the Spanish foundation that's going to make my trip so much better. Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons, handcrafted by more than 200 language experts, get you to begin speaking your new language in 3 weeks or at whatever pace you choose. And because conversing is the key to really understanding each other in a new language, Babbel is designed using practical, real-world conversations. And one way they do that is with their own podcasts. I'm a podcast listener. I'm guessing since you're listening to this podcast, you are too. And I have been getting ready for my Mexico City trip by listening to Babbel's conversational podcasts. There's a short conversation you listen to, then an instructor talks you through what happened, and then you listen again, and then you catch everything when you listen that second time. There's also a great read-along transcript, too, which I love. The one I did today was with Maria and Carmela trying to make dinner plans, but Carmela is so busy. She's way too busy with work and yoga, but finally they agreed on brunch on Saturday. Studies from Yale, Michigan State, and other universities continue to prove that Babbel works. One study found that using Babbel for 15 hours is equivalent to a full semester at college. So let's get more of you talking in a new language. Babbel is gifting CityCast listeners 60% off subscriptions at babbel.com/CityCast. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/CityCast. Spelled BABBEL.com/CityCast. Babbel.com/CityCast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Hey, Fidelity. What's it cost to invest with the Fidelity app?
Start with as little as $1 with no account fees or trade commissions on U.S. stocks and ETFs.
That's music to my ears.
I can only talk.
Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Zero account fees apply to retail brokerage accounts only. Sell order assessment fee not included. A limited number of ETFs are subject to a transaction-based service fee of $100. See full list at fidelity.com/commissions. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE, SIPC.
All right, so we've talked about our local races. Now there's a lot going on in this capital city at the State House. Jade, you've got the story.
Yeah, so also on Tuesday, we're really honing in on Tuesday this week, but Governor Tony Evers released his biannual budget for the state. And here is the governor speaking to the joint legislature.
Our budget includes my comprehensive plan to lower costs from childcare to medication to help working families, seniors, and students. I'm also providing nearly $2 billion in tax relief, including eliminating income tax on tips, and my plan invests in public education at every level while holding the line on property taxes to make sure the average homeowner will not see a property tax increase.
So as we just heard, Governor Evers is planning to enact tax cuts, but he is increasing the current spending by 20%. Yeah, the budget would spend nearly $119 billion, About $50.5 billion of that would come from taxes. That's individual, corporate, sales. And the rest would come from the federal government, our current balance in the general fund, and other sources. At the end of that budget cycle, we would have $646 million remaining, which is a big decrease from where we're going to be at the end of this current budget cycle with $4.3 billion. So this is a 700-page budget with a lot of big dreams from the governor, but Republican lawmakers who control both the Senate and the Assembly have already signaled that they will be stripping it way back. Assembly Speaker Robin Vos told the press after the address that most of what Evers outlined in his budget would be dead on arrival.
Not shocked there.
Slap.
I'm going to point out a few things that I find noteworthy, but like I said, this is a 700-page budget. So if you're interested in more, we'll link the budget, but also check out local news outlets like WPR, Wisconsin State Journal. So one of the things that stood out to me is that this proposed budget would create a fifth tax bracket for top earners in Wisconsin. That'd be for individuals making $500,000 or joint filers who are making $1 million together per year. Currently, the top bracket is for individuals making at least $210,000 a year or joint filers who are making at least $420,000 a year. So that's a huge divide between the people who just make it into that tax bracket and the people who are making the most money in the state. But for folks who are not in a high earner tax bracket, the governor's budget, proposed budget, I should say, includes tax breaks. So that's property tax cuts for veterans, seniors, and individuals with disabilities, eliminating tax on cash tips, utility bills, over-the-counter medications, and items like diapers and menstrual products, and expanding the state's child tax credit. So he's really coming for the taxes, both for high earners and low earners, or medium earners, I guess.
Yeah, it seems like he's covering a lot of his bases here, and it's kind of frustrating that we will probably never see any of this actually put into action, but I digress.
Except for maybe the eliminating the tax on cash tips. There's some, we've heard that there's some bipartisan support there, you know, more populist ideas, I guess.
As y'all remember, Governor Evers claimed this year, the year of the kid, and he's trying to make good on that with this budget proposal. He'd be investing $500 million in lowering childcare costs and supporting the industry and investing in employer-sponsored childcare. He's also increasing spending for K-12 schools by adding more than $3 billion in funding to public education. Technical colleges would get an investment of about $60 million. And notably, the UW system would receive an increase of $856 million, which is the largest increase of state aid ever requested for the UW system.
That's huge. I'm very interested to see how that unfolds. UW system, UW Madison specifically, like they are aching for cash now, especially with all the uncertainties surrounding federal funding. That's a big one. It's a big number, but it's a huge need.
I feel like everyone should be able to get behind the year of the kid, you know, in terms of the kids are our future. So I'd love to see that sort of focus. And it makes sense coming from Governor Evers, who had the job that we talked about at the top of the episode about, you know, public instruction. He's a former teacher, you know, so it makes a lot of sense.
Is it wrong that I think, and this is just so stupid, but like whenever someone says year of the kid, I think like small goat.
Year of the dog, year of the dragon. Yeah, no, I mean, it does. It also evokes something like that.
Like, could the branding not have been like year of the children or something like that? Like, I don't, kid, just one, it seems very informal. And two, again, my mind immediately just goes to small goat. But again, I digress.
You mean like because of the Chinese calendar? Or?
Yeah, like that, but also just immediately in my mind, I think of like kid as a small goat animal. Like that's just like that's what they're called.
Oh, that's a. Would you grow up around goats?
No,
I literally. I don't have that reaction. You just have a good vocabulary.
I'm just like on another level.
Yeah. Should have thought of that, Evers.
Moving on from the year of the kid, the other thing that I'm keeping my eye on is that tucked into this budget proposal is a clause that would require the legislature to consider a bill that would give Wisconsin citizens the right to create or reject laws by putting a referendum on the ballot. This is a practice that is allowed in about half of states. And I'm watching this closely because if it was allowed, I do think that this is the path to cannabis legalization.
Interesting. That's a good point. Yeah, that's a really good point.
April 20th is coming up. Not right away, but it's around the corner. So what now?
Yeah, so now this budget, the 700-page budget from the governor, is going to the legislature's budget committee, and they will write a new 2-year spending plan. Like I mentioned, they will take a hefty edit to the governor's budget, and then it will go to both the Assembly and the Senate for a vote, and finally to the governor's desk where he has limited veto power. And then the new budget will be in effect on July 1st.
Okay, well, we're tracking along. It's definitely an interesting process. And they're not the only ones in the building stages. We're going to talk about the Center for Black Excellence, which has some construction updates and staffing news. But that'll be in a moment. Before we do that, let's take a quick break.
This is an ad from BetterHelp Online Therapy. We always hear about the red flags to avoid in relationships, but it's just as important to focus on the green flags. If you're not quite sure what they look like, therapy can help you identify those qualities so you can embody the green flag energy and find it in others. BetterHelp offers therapy 100% online, and sign-up only takes a few minutes. Visit BetterHelp.com today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com.
Are you still quoting 30-year-old movies? Have you said cool beans in the past 90 days? Do you think Discover isn't widely accepted? If this sounds like you, you're stuck in the past. Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. And every time you make a purchase with your card, you automatically earn cash back. Welcome to the now. It pays to Discover. Learn more at discover.com/credit card. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen report.
We're back, and it is still Black History Month. Oh, happy day for all who celebrate. Hopefully that's everyone. Hope you've been celebrating and maybe hitting some of the events that we promoted in our newsletter, Madison Minutes. And if you listen to our February Guide episode, this will be a reminder for you, but this Saturday is actually the 3rd annual Minding My Own Black-Owned Business pop-up shop, which just sounds so fun. So Saturday, February 22nd from 12 to 3 p.m. over at the Elver Park Neighborhood Center. That's on McKenna Boulevard. I just wanted to shout that out. They're going to have 40 Black and Brown owned small businesses. So if you want to shop Black, Brown, go do that. And on the topic of Black excellence, as we mentioned, the forthcoming Center for Black Excellence and Culture just hit a new milestone. That's 37,000-foot planned community center located in a historic Black neighborhood on West Badger Road, right by South Park Street and the Beltline, is seeing some real headway, y'all. They just celebrated a steel topping ceremony. That was a new idea for me last week, someone who wants to know more about construction, putting the last steel beams in, and they're really coming along. The center's been under construction for the past 7 months. We've talked about the huge groundbreaking ceremony that happened with government and community leaders, U.S. Senator Tammy Baldwin and Congressman Mark Pocan, Mayor Sati Rhodes Conway, and many other folks were there to celebrate that day. So this is the next big step, and they actually, I don't know if you guys saw this, but they put one of the steel beams in that they had community members sign. So it's literally like a physical memory that will be a part of the structure, which is really exciting. They also have some more news, at least at the end of last month. They named a new COO, Chief Operating Officer, at the end of last month, named Jason Fields, which is super exciting. Jason comes to them from his most recent job as president and CEO of Madison Region Economic Partnership. So some of y'all listening might know him, Mad Rep. He's also formerly served in the Wisconsin State Assembly for the 11th District, worked as a stockbroker. He's a general business leader, and he's from Wisconsin. He's one of ours. So the center is going to be we're just super excited for it, just so critical for Black residents, and specifically of all ages, like youth to seniors. I'm really excited, and we're going to toss our interview with the director and founder, Reverend Dr. Alex G., about the center, because he really gets into detail about the things that they're planning on having in that space. So head to our show notes for that. I grabbed a quote from their Facebook quote. It'll be a Black space where our collective hearts and minds gather to create Black solutions, build Black wealth, nurture Black health, and celebrate Black culture. Wakanda forever. I added that. So, yeah, we're all happy about that. Obviously, we're cheering them on. And there is some other news, and when we're talking about Black history, it's kind of a bummer. And maybe the lessons of Black history about how far we still have yet to come. So, I saw a pretty disturbing investigative piece a couple days ago in the Cap Times about a major city-sponsored nonprofit that's reportedly not doing a great job of nurturing Black health and well-being for its Black seniors. The piece, reported by Enjoyana Nuruddin, one of Cap Times' local government reporters, exposes a series of complaints around racial disparities in how the senior programming and services work at Newbridge. So this organization, Newbridge, whose tagline is "Your Connection to Successful Aging," is one of the city's main partners in offering senior services. And for instance, they will be getting $400,000 from the city in funding just this year. That's over half of our city's designated budget for senior support. So from this article, some of the Black seniors who've used their services have said, quote, "Newbridge has excluded them from case management and outreach efforts, begun charging them fees for routine activities, and offered significantly more support to other seniors." Just for context, this organization was already kind of in some hot water, going to lose some of their funding from the city because the city actually wants to diversify their access to senior care. That's been a pledge, and literally spread the wealth to other organizations that are doing this work. Newbridge, the organization, pushed back saying, hey, we already are doing this diversity work. They were successful in their lobbying efforts to the city, despite some of these complaints from Black seniors. So they're still getting a lion's share of the money from a city for the senior supports. And one quote from that article was that the nonprofit, quote, organized about 5 times more cultural programs for Hispanic seniors than Black seniors. Another quote, this month, the nonprofit is offering 5 programs for Black History Month compared to the 40 events scheduled for Hispanic Heritage Month in October. And that's kind of one of the things that is being pointed out, just disparities between the diversity efforts that are being offered in the programming. There is a quote from a Newbridge volunteer saying that it's not diversity for Black people, it's diversity for Hispanics and white people. So this is a real issue that's bubbling up in their programming. And that volunteer also said that every time that the Black seniors ask for something, they're just told it's not in the budget. And they're feeling kind of like, we're getting the short end of the stick here. So the article says that, the reporter reached out to executive director of Newbridge, Jim Kruger, and as of the publication date, they said that after repeated quests, they haven't heard anything. So, bah humbug.
Yeah, this is an interesting story too. I also read it, and it's just like a big bummer to hear from like all of these seniors who are just like, we used to be really excited about this program and whatnot, and like recently things have kind of dropped off and fallen off. And it's frustrating because you can see that Newbridge is doing a lot of really great work, right? Like it is awesome to have 40 different scheduled events for Hispanic Heritage Month, but then seeing that disparity with like 5 events for Black History Month, like it's just like, ooh, like the numbers don't lie, right? That's rough.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see if, I know that the article says they've gotten radio silence, but I'll be curious to see if like public backlash has some like real impacts on the programming that they offer in the future. Hopefully it does.
Yeah, and that's why we're talking about it, because it's Black History Month. Don't like to see this. Don't like to hear this. That article actually started out, too, saying that they had a holiday party this past December and that there was supposed to be planned transportation for the seniors to get home afterwards. And a number of Black seniors said that they were just standing there out in sub-freezing temperatures and watched other people get rides, including like somebody who worked there ushering their family home, and they just stood out in the freezing temperatures. And so it was kind of a stark picture that they drew.
Yeah, that was it. Such a heartbreaking and like strong start to that article. Really, just I think it kind of, unfortunately, really does paint the picture of being literally and figuratively being left in the cold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and hey, we know that these are kind of like difficult conversations, having conversations about diversity, and they're conversations that should be had. That's why we're here, CityCast Madison. We're having conversations about what's happening in the city, sometimes heartbreaking, sometimes lovely, the center, to some other services that aren't really showing up the way, or at least allegedly not showing up the way that they should be. But we wanted to just really quick take a moment and highlight that we asked y'all to chime in and be a part of our community and actually share your voice. If you remember, we recently did a Love Week on the podcast, and we did one episode where we actually hit the streets to ask about Madison's dating scene and heard from a lot of you in us out and about in the wild. Because apparently Wallet Hub ranked Madison one of the best cities for dating and being single in the US, which is just kind of wild. And then we turned to y'all who are listening, who we didn't get to hear from at Robin Room or Public Parking. And one of you actually left us a voicemail, and we're really grateful.
Hi there, this is Jack. I'm calling from Mad City, Wisco, the one and only. I'm single right now, even though I've gone on maybe 10 to 12 dates over the past year, and obviously I can't speak for many other people, but I feel like Madison is a place where a lot of people do tend to stay single. I think the relationship turnover rate is kind of high. Not that that's entirely a bad thing, but it can be frustrating. I think we are lucky in terms of the amount of places where people can go on dates. So I've been fortunate enough not only to go on coffee dates or to the bars, but also, go for walks around the Capitol, at Old Brick Gardens, at the Arb. And so there's definitely no shortage of things to do in terms of dating, but it can be hard, to find people, especially, if you're not, either if you don't work for Epic or one of the tech companies in town, or you're not in a PhD program at the UW. So it's tricky. It's mixed. There's a lot out there, but I'm resolved to keep trying and keep going on dates, keep up the good work, and I'll check you guys out next time.
Aw, thanks, Jack.
That's so nice. I love hearing from people. It's so good. I love when people chime in with their own experiences, going on different dates, going on walks. We love to hear it.
And good luck to you, Jack.
Yes. Good luck to Jack. And it's just another testament that we're all looking for connection. We want to be connected. We're in person today for this Friday News Roundup, and we want to be connected with you and your story and what you're thinking about. We want to, reference what we mentioned at the top of this episode, that we know that there is a ton going on in national politics right now, and it can't be ignored. And a lot of it's very personal, and it is or may very well hit close to home. So leave us a voicemail. How are you doing? What questions you have about life in Madison during these times and all the changes that are coming down from the new Trump administration? Will you weigh in? Leave us a voicemail at 608-318-3367. And again, you don't need to share your name. That's 608-318-3367. We'd really appreciate it. We here at CityCast Madison promise to continue to bring you stories of delight and joy from our city, to uplift diverse voices, and to keep it real with you, when things are not as good as they can be. So that's what we're trying to do here. So yeah, join us.
Give us a call. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Thanks for rounding up the news with me this week. As always, Hayley Sperling. See you later.
See you next time.
And Jade Iseri-Ramos. Thanks so much.
See you soon.
That's all for today here on CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin, your host. We're produced by Jade Iseri-Ramos. Hayley Sperling is our executive producer. Our theme music is by Carl Christensen. Rob Thomas is our newsletter editor. Don't forget, you can always get more news delivered right to your inbox by subscribing to Madison Minutes. And hey, if you enjoyed today's show, why not share this podcast with someone who really cares about local politics? See you back here Monday morning with more stories from around the city. Have a good weekend.